I need to scramble for a chance to see Desi Arnaz Jr. He's appearing in a new South Florida play, and right now he's talking with Jill Beach. Jill.
Peter, if there ever was a person you could say literally grew up on television and in the entertainment business, it has to be Desi Arnaz Jr. He's in town right now, appearing at the Coconut Grove Playhouse. New production, I Love My Wife.
That's right.
Is it a fun play? It is.
It's a very fun play. The nature of the play is really a kind of a fun look at the 70s and the morals and the sexual revolution of the 70s, only it's done with a lot of comedy and music. And
it was an award winner back in 1977, and has anything been changed in the production that makes it a little bit more into the 80s, or is it, as you said, pretty much a look back?
It is definitely a look back, and it has to be, because the 80s are totally different than the 70s, which is really odd to me, because 10 years ago, it's all we're talking about, and it was quite different because of the ramifications involved this day, 10 years later, compared to 10 years ago, if you were thinking about being promiscuous.
The show previewed last night. It opens officially on Friday night, and it runs through February 2nd. Mm-hmm. What kind of reaction did you get from the audience?
They liked it. They were very amused by the play. We had a very nice preview last night. It's a lot of fun, the play. Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny because it's kind of a touchy subject, you know, and so that's what makes it funny, though, because it's a simultaneous glimpse at reality and then finding the humor in it. And there's a little message in it, too, about how to have a right kind of relationship, and that promiscuity really isn't what it's cracked up to be.
Your relationship in this particular show is, your wife happens to be Sandra Santiago.
That's right.
Star of the very popular Miami Vice series.
Yes.
What's it like working with her?
Well, she's been it's been very different to do the play while she's been working, and so it's been a kind of difficult initially, but now I think she's able to concentrate on the play, and she's done a very good job. She's very believable and very natural in the play, and she's a very good singer, and she's a very good performer.
So you've been through Miami a few times before, you say, here in South Florida.
Last time I was here was for the Cuban Carnival about 5 years ago, when my father and I came down. He was the Grand Marshal.
Well, you brought your father up first, not me, so we have to spend a little bit of time talking. I mean, it must be something to grow up in a goldfish bowl environment with such a popular family and such famous parents and sister, the whole 9 yards. What do people usually ask you about that first?
Well, I've spent a lot of time in my life telling people that I'm not who you think I am, nor are my parents who you think they are either. And just recently, really in the last few years, a lot of what I've been doing has been talking to people about what I've been doing with my life. And not just so much about my parents, but what life is all about. And I'm involved in a program called Success Without Stress, which is based on the ideas of a man named Vernon Howard. And what it is really relates to everyone, and as far as me growing up, that I'm really no different than anybody else, nor were my parents any different than anybody else, even though we had certain so-called guarantees for happiness, that those things weren't what the world thinks they are. For example, the tragic story you just had on the news about Ricky Nelson, kind of interesting. People think you are this particular person, and then you find out that no one's really immune to the problems that face humanity, and that my parents were talented, and they were, you know, but basically they had the problems just like everybody else has problems, and no one's immune to those problems, no matter where you're from.
And nowadays, you had some problems when you were a youngster, around 13 or so. You got pretty tied up with drugs.
Right.
That happens a lot with families nowadays. They all have to deal with that, but that wasn't something that was happening to every family across the board that many years ago.
Oh, it was,
really?
It was, yeah. 20 years ago, what was even more insidious is that we thought drugs were an alternative to life. Thank God, even though it's worse now, at least there's more information out there now. But no, 20 years ago, 1 out of every 9 people were still addicted to drugs and alcohol. So, I mean, alcoholism was still the 3rd largest killer in the world. So, of course, it was still as bad, and it's even worse now. No, what I found when I went through recovery about 4 years ago, and then became involved with the program on Success Without Stress, which deals with all stress-related problems, is that people from all different walks of life, had the exact same story that I had. And it made no difference where they came from. And that maybe I saw it at an earlier age, coming from a well-to-do, financially secure background, that all of those guarantees were still not what they were cracked up to be. Not that there's anything wrong with being financially secure or being famous, but that there's something more to happiness.
One last quick question. Now that you've got everything under control again and back on track, what's next? After I Love My Wife at the Grove Playhouse, what's next?
Well, I'm spending a lot of time talking to people about the ideas based on the inner health author Vernon Howard. And I'm working on producing a couple of projects for television, and I may be doing a feature film, and I'm keeping pretty busy.
Thank you. Desi Arnaz Jr.
Thank
Peter?
you.